Why does it feel more like I'm watching the prequel to season 4, more so than I'm watching the ending of season 3? Oh well, still damn good. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Superman and Lois Season 3, Episode 12, Injustice. When I heard that title, I wondered if Superman was going to go kill Lex Luthor now that he's out of prison, but he didn't. It's not really Injustice like the game. But, gotta say, this is a pretty solid build-up for Lex. Granted, I do think it was a little over the top with the hard rock music playing in the background anytime he showed up, but it's still pretty fitting. Like I said before, this Lex that they've been talking about doesn't sound like the charismatic politician Lex that I'm used to seeing. This guy seems a lot more intimidating, played by the guy who played Abraham on The Walking Dead, which is ironic since Tyrese from The Walking Dead was the villain this season. Yeah, Michael Cudlitz brings it in this episode. Every scene that he's in, you can just feel the intimidation that he's putting off. The whole story about how he sort of took over the prison, pretty straightforward, basically threatening the warden's family if he doesn't give him everything he wants. But the scene still played out so entertainingly just to see how in control he is, see what he does to all the guys that were making fun of him and beating the shit out of him earlier on. And then the scene on the porch, fittingly intimidating. You really get a sense that he knows what he wants to do. And he almost implies that he had something to do with her cancer diagnosis, which I don't think that's the case. This definitely does seem like it's building up for season 4. I don't know what he's going to do in this final episode now that he's found Bizarro Superman. Honestly, I don't even know how he's going to survive, since it seems like Bizarro Superman's just attacking anything in sight. So RIP to Otis, I suppose. I will say it did pop into my mind. It would be really stupid, but it would be kind of hilarious if they go down to where Bizarro Superman was and they just see the bodies of Otis and Lex just crumpled on the ground. It's like that's all Lex was doing here, was just to go get killed by Bizarro Superman, and now he's done. They wouldn't do that, but something about that would be very hilarious on a troll sort of level. So I do wonder how he's going to manage to contain Bizarro Superman, and I am going to be curious to see what he's going to do in this final episode that's probably going to build up towards season 4. But I will say this episode, while all of that was very entertaining and it's getting me excited to see more of Lex in the future, I will say the stuff with Jordan is getting on my nerves. I was sympathetic toward him in the last episode. I do feel like Sarah treated him pretty poorly throughout most of the season, so I understand why he's lashing out at her. But now all of a sudden, the way he's acting in this episode is so stupid and childish. Going to take pictures of all these people, smiling while they're taking pictures of him. So self-centered. And honestly, dangerous too, because how do you know one of those people aren't going to try to pull your mask off or your hood or whatever? And now all of a sudden your secret identity is very exposed. But his reaction afterward as well is that stereotypical, "Oh, you just don't understand, Mom and Dad. You guys don't get it. You're old, so you don't understand what I'm going through." And it's one thing whenever it's something stupid, like they want to go out and party, or they want to go and hang with their friends, or they want to go do this or that. They want to get a tattoo. They want to go drink. I don't know. Stuff like that. It's whatever. It's kids acting out. This is a situation where you could be putting Superman's life in danger. He's facing villains that could possibly try to destroy the world. So his secret identity being found out, kind of a big deal. It's not just something that, oh, they just don't understand what I'm going through. No. You don't understand what you're going through. You don't understand the gravity of the situation if you really think it's as simple as, I should just go out and save people and who cares if people know who I am. That's a problem, because as soon as people find out who you are, they know who your dad is. And now every villain knows exactly where to find you guys and exactly who to attack. So any sympathy that I had for Jordan throughout most of the season is basically gone in this one episode. He's acting like a little brat. The stuff with Jonathan, I feel like everybody just needs to sit down and talk to each other. Because Jonathan is correct. He didn't go home and complain to his dad. He was talking to Jordan about it, and his dad happened to hear him and went and talked to Kyle without him knowing. So it just feels like there's a lot of a lack of communication between those three. And I actually do understand why Kyle's frustrated, because the idea that Jonathan just went and complained to his dad about what's going on, it looks immature, and that's not what he needs at the firehouse. So I understand where he's coming from, but also, like I said, for Jonathan, it's not like he went and told his dad. It's probably something he does need to talk to Kyle about directly, so I do agree with Kyle on that too. But like Jonathan said, he didn't go and tell his dad. He didn't complain to him. So yeah, it's one of those situations that I think could easily be resolved if everybody just sits down and talks directly to each other instead of saying stuff over here and then saying stuff behind this person's back and then coming and saying stuff here. There's no need for any of that, really. And then, of course, the stuff with Sarah and Lana. Obviously, this is not Sarah and Jordan getting back together anytime soon, or ever, seemingly. So I guess the show writers just decided, yeah, they're done. Which, I mean, does happen, but again, it felt like it was working the first couple seasons. So I don't understand why that changed so quickly But I do have more sympathy for Sarah in this episode because she was telling her mom who needed to know. Her mom tells Lois and Clark, who both need to know. And Jordan coming and blaming Sarah for what he was doing, it doesn't look good for him. So it's very ironic how most of the season I've been sympathizing with Jordan for how Sarah's been acting, and now in this episode that completely flipped. But I do think there was a nice moment between Sarah and Lana in this episode, and I still hope this for Sarah is her growing from her mistakes, growing from a lot of the stupid stuff she's been doing for most of this season, because she's needed to. She has been a very annoying little brat for most of this season, so I'm hoping this is that moment. Whenever she and her mom connect, she does feel depressed, she feels upset about a lot of the stuff that's happening, but I'm hoping that's helping her realize what she's been doing wrong and how she's got to learn to move past that. I think that's about it for this episode, so all we have left is the finale. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing how the season's going to come to a close. It is a little weird that we've kind of just moved on from the Bruno Mannheim stuff, even though that was the focus of most of this season. But I do think this is kind of the aftermath of everything that happened with Bruno Mannheim, and now the focus is going to be on what he is released and what Lex Luthor is going to use. I do think it's going to be a bit more focused on what that is going to create going into the next season. So we'll see what they decide to do, see how they decide to end this one. But on to the finale. I'll see you guys there. And now episode 13, what kills you only makes you stronger. That's not how the song goes. I didn't realize this was going to be a legit cliffhanger into season 4. Because like I said, I assumed it was going to be building up for season 4. But I did not realize that it was going to end without a conclusion. But in that, I will say it does feel like episodes 1 through, I would say, 11, you could argue is the main story for this season. And then these past 2 episodes have mostly been the epilogue building up into next season. So when I say it ended without a conclusion, what I more so mean is this story with Lex and what he's been doing with Bizarro Superman. That story is ending without a conclusion, but you could argue that this is sort of building up to season 4, so I guess it just depends on how you think a show is supposed to run when you talk about the different seasons. For me, while I am disappointed that I won't see the end of the story just yet, I think it's well done. It's a good setup. A lot of good stuff going into this that I'm excited to see what happens. I'm not very comic book savvy, so somebody will have to tell me, is there a version of Bizarro Superman that dies and returns and dies and returns and eventually becomes Doomsday? But even if there's not, I still think this is a good version of him. When you get brought back from the dead, you wouldn't be the same person you were before. So I don't mind the fact that this Bizarro Superman is now essentially just animalistic. And I don't know if it's something from the other Earth that he was from. Maybe that version of Krypton that he was from. Maybe this is part of their DNA that whenever they die, they get reborn and they change every time. Or maybe it's something that Bruno Mannheim did in trying to revive him that altered him in this way. But whatever the case, I think it's a good decision because it does add a little bit of a history there now. Because while this isn't the same man that Clark knew before, I still think there is going to be that little bit of a connection that will add some emotion to his story, I believe. Now, as far as what I'm expecting for season 4 with this story, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it begins with the death of Superman, possibly, because I know that's part of Doomsday's story is kill Superman. And so maybe we'll have like the first part of the season be focused on Jordan trying to take his father's place and trying to follow in his footsteps. Everybody dealing with the loss of Superman. Lex maybe taking over a bit. I don't know exactly the extent to which he will take over, but I'm assuming with no Superman to stop him, and also assuming he still has Doomsday under his control, I would expect that nobody can stand up to him. So I feel like it might be a pretty bleak start to season 4, but who knows, they could also save the death of Superman for the end of the season, and that's how they close out the show, which would be really sad, but I guess not entirely unheard of. But I will say other stories outside of the main one, they're okay. I think Jordan finally having a bit of a wise up moment in this episode and having a chance to actually apologize to Sarah, I think it was nice. It's a chance for him to finally grow up a bit because, like I said in the last episode, he was definitely not being the most likable person. I do feel pretty bad for Jonathan because you could see him trying so hard to make up for what he did to the football team, and the coach just does not give a shit. The coach hates his guts right now. I feel like that's something that they need to pay off next season, just to have that moment for Jonathan to win back at least just some respect from his coach. But the other couple stories are, of course, focused on Kyle and Chrissy, and then Lana and John Henry. It's whatever. Kyle and Chrissy are going to have a baby. He proposes to her at the end of the episode. Lana and John Henry finally hook up. It's fine. I like these characters fine. I'm glad Lana's not getting all jealous or anything, because she has moved on. And she even tells John Henry at one point, it felt like they were together more so because of the history that they had. So I really do appreciate that they didn't go into all of the jealousy and all that storyline. Doesn't mean I'm interested in these stories, though, to be perfectly honest. But it does feel like it's dipping its toes back into the soap opera element of, oh, well, now he's having a baby with this woman. He's going to get married to her, and then she's now seeing this guy, and ooh, what is that going to mean? Who cares? Again, I think the idea of them moving on is something that is realistic when it comes to divorce, and not every divorce ends with the two people hating each other and never wanting to talk to each other again. So I do like that mature element to it, but at the same time, this feels like it's going a little over the top with it. I think something else that they do an okay job of, but not a great job, is showing that passage of time. I think at the beginning of this episode, Lois names how long it's been since what happened in the last episode. So it has been a good chunk of time. It's been probably a good chunk of time that Kyle and Chrissy started dating. So I don't think this relationship is being rushed or anything, but it kind of feels like it, because while you're telling us how much time is passing and you're showing that it is taking a while in between each episode, it still feels quick for us, because the beginning of this season was the first time that they even hooked up before Kyle and Lana even had their divorce. And that was 12 episodes ago. And while 12 episodes doesn't sound like a short amount of time, it feels it. And I think some of that may also be because I'm watching these episodes pretty quickly after each other. I'm not having to wait a week in between each episode. So I think that does hurt my perception of time a little bit when it comes to the stories inside of it, but it still does feel a bit rushed. This feels like something that maybe should have happened at the beginning of the 4th season. You know, after they've had a chance to go through the summer, maybe that's something that they kick off season 4 with, is her realizing that she's pregnant. But who knows, maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. Maybe it's just because I'm not really connecting with these stories. But it could be worse, to be fair. This is not poorly written or poorly acted. They are acting mature in these scenes, so there is that going for it. Just unfortunately, compared to everything else going on, which is so much more interesting, this feels very pointless to me. I will also say, obviously, I can't prove this, but I did call that Gretchen was going to be working for Luther, because she seemed so random in the introduction. The episode started with him meeting her at some bar while Lois was doing her narration. And so then whenever he introduces her to everybody, all I could think was, this is too random. This feels kind of like Mateo in a way. So I feel like she's got to be connected to something. I feel like she's going to be working for Lex Luthor more than likely. And then when she takes him to the alleyway, it is clearly trying to keep him away from everybody else and takes his phone and puts it down. I'm like, okay, yeah. Clearly she is now. So it did at least give a reason for him to be going back onto the dating scene outside of just, oh, old people need to date too. But it still feels like such a random inclusion in this season to have him wanting to be getting back out there. But with all that being said, that'll do it for season 3. This was a very enjoyable season. I think it's probably the weakest of the 3 that I've seen so far, but that's not really that bad of a critique considering the first 2 seasons were really good. Honestly, I think this season is better than probably 95% of the rest of the CW seasons out there. And to be perfectly honest, what it comes down to is my own personal opinion. Some of these stories did not interest me as much when you think about Kyle and Chrissy, Lana and John Henry, Sarah acting like a brat, Jordan acting like a brat. They're things that just didn't grab my attention as much as the first 2 seasons did. So it still ranks very, very highly when it comes to the other DC shows that I've seen so far. And I'm really excited to get into the 4th season. I won't be starting it next, but I will be getting back to it probably pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these final 2 episodes and the season as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Superman and Lois reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.